The gunshot echoed across the Montana prairie, startling a flock of meadowlarks into flight as Declan Drake crouched in the tall grass, rifle still warm in his calloused hands. The deer he'd been tracking for hours lay 50 yards ahead, enough meat to feed him and his 7-year-old daughter Lily for weeks. It was 1878, and another harsh winter was approaching faster than he cared to admit. "Got him, Pa," Lily's small voice called from where she waited by their wagon. "Yes, darlin'," Declan replied, standing to his full height and waving. "Stay put while I dress it." He moved efficiently through the familiar process, his mind elsewhere as it often was these days. 3 years since Sarah had passed from fever, and still the hollow ache in his chest remained. The ranch survived barely, and Lily grew taller each day. But there were moments he felt lost in his own life. An hour later, with the deer loaded in the wagon, they headed back toward their homestead in the shadow of the Rockies. Lily chattered about her dolls and the birds she'd seen, her voice the only sweetness in Declan's otherwise solitary existence. "Your hair's getting mighty tangled again," he noted, eyeing the wild blonde strands escaping her braid. Try as he might, Declan's large hands weren't made for the delicate work of braiding a little girl's hair. Sarah had done it so effortlessly. Each morning before breakfast, Lily touched her messy plate self-consciously. "I know, Pa, it ain't like Mama did it." The simple truth of those words squeezed Declan's heart as they crested the hill that revealed their ranch, a sturdy 2-story house, barn, and corral sprawling across 20 acres of hard-won earth. As they approached, Declan noticed an unfamiliar horse tied to their hitching post. Behind it, a small covered wagon stood with one wheel visibly broken. "Who's that, Pa?" Lily asked, sitting up straighter. "Don't know," Declan replied, reaching for the rifle that rested against the wagon seat. Strangers could mean trouble, especially this far from town. A woman emerged from the shadow of their porch, one hand raised in greeting, the other holding a small child against her hip. She wore a simple dark blue dress, her chestnut hair pinned in a practical knot at her nape. "Hello there," she called, her voice carrying across the yard. "I hope you don't mind. Your well was open and my boy was desperate for water." Declan pulled the wagon to a stop, studying the stranger carefully. She appeared to be in her mid-20s, with a weary face that still managed to convey dignity. The child, a boy no more than 3, clung to her, face partially hidden in her shoulder. "You're welcome to the water, madam," Declan said, setting his rifle aside but keeping it within reach. "Trouble with your wagon. Wheels split coming down that last ridge," she explained. "I was hoping to reach Cedar Creek by nightfall, but..." She gestured helplessly at her disabled transportation. "Cedar Creek's another day's journey," Declan informed her, climbing down from his wagon. "I'm Declan Drake. This is my daughter, Lily." The woman shifted her son to her other hip and nodded politely. "Willow Harper. This is my son, James." She hesitated, then added, "My husband died 6 months ago. Fever took him quick. We're heading to my cousin's place in Cedar Creek." Declan felt a twinge of sympathy. Another widow trying to survive in this unforgiving country. That wheel needs more than a quick fix. Town blacksmith could help, but that's half a day back the way you came. Lily had climbed down from the wagon and was staring openly at the little boy, who peered back at her with solemn eyes. "I can pay for repairs," Willow said quickly. "And for lodging in town if you could direct me. Nightfall's coming fast," Declan interrupted, glancing at the sky. "Roads aren't safe after dark. Wolves, not to mention less savory types passing through." He hesitated, then made a decision his solitary self would have questioned. "We've got room here. You and your boy can stay the night, and I'll take you to town tomorrow." Relief washed across Willow's face. "We wouldn't want to impose. Ain't no imposition," Declan said gruffly. "Lily, help Mrs. Harper get her things while I tend to the horses." As Declan unhitched the team, he watched Lily approach Willow cautiously. His daughter had seen few women since Sarah's, passing just the occasional visit to town or church on Sundays when weather permitted. The isolation was another burden he carried, knowing his girl needed more than just his companionship. Willow set her son down, and the 2 children regarded each other with the unfiltered curiosity of youth. James, thumb in mouth, half hid behind his mother's skirts. "I have dolls," Lily announced decisively. "Do you want to see them?" The little boy nodded, and just like that, a bridge was formed. By evening, Declan had built up the fire and prepared a meal from their store's venison stew, biscuits, and preserved peaches Sarah had put up before her final illness. The simple meal seemed to revive Willow, bringing color to her pale cheeks. "This is wonderful," she said, accepting a second helping. "It's been a while since we've had meat." Declan nodded, uncomfortable with gratitude. "Game's plentiful if you know where to look." "My husband was from the city," Willow explained. He had dreams of farming out west but hadn't quite mastered hunting before. She trailed off, eyes momentarily distant. "The fever," Declan finished for her. "Same took my wife 3 years back." Their eyes met across the table, a moment of shared understanding that needed no further words. After supper, Willow insisted on helping with the dishes while the children played by the fire. Declan watched, strangely self-conscious as she moved around his kitchen, noticing how she seemed to find her way instinctively. "Your daughter is lovely," Willow commented as they worked. "She has your eyes." "Her mother's spirit, though," Declan replied. "Stubborn as they come," Willow smiled. "James is the same. Every day he looks more like his father, acts more like him too." She glanced toward where the children sat on the rug, Lily patiently showing James how to hold her rag doll. "Children are resilient, aren't they? Sometimes I think he's handling everything better than I am." Declan handed her a plate to dry. "They adapt. It's us grown folks who get stuck." When the kitchen was clean, Declan showed Willow to the spare bedroom. It had been Sarah's sewing room once, but he'd added a bed for the occasional visitor, though those had been rare these past years. "I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Drake," Willow said, standing in the doorway with James drowsy against her shoulder. "Declan," he corrected, "and it's nothing, get some rest." Later, as he tucked Lily into bed, his daughter surprised him with a question. "Pa, can Mrs. Harper stay longer?" Declan frowned. "She's headed to her family, Lily. She just needs help getting to town." "But she's nice," Lily insisted. "And James doesn't talk much, but he likes my dolls." "People have their own paths," Declan said, smoothing her blanket. "Now get some sleep." But after Lily's breathing had deepened into slumber, Declan sat on the edge of his own bed, turning his wedding ring, which he still wore, around his finger. The house felt different tonight, fuller somehow. The silence that usually pressed in on him after Lily went to bed was absent, replaced by the occasional creak of floorboards as Willow settled her son. Morning brought the scent of coffee and the sound of quiet conversation. Declan paused in the hallway, momentarily disoriented by the domestic scene in his kitchen. Willow at the stove, Lily sitting at the table chattering away while James picked at a biscuit. "Good morning," Willow greeted him, a flush rising to her cheeks. "I hope you don't mind." "I found the flour and coffee, thought I should earn our keep." "Smells good," Declan said, accepting the cup she offered. The coffee was stronger than he usually made it, but he found he liked the bold flavor. "Mrs. Harper makes really good biscuits, Pa," Lily informed him. "Even better than yours." Declan raised an eyebrow. "That's so." "Well, to be fair, the bar isn't particularly high," Willow teased gently, then immediately looked worried she'd overstepped. To his own surprise, Declan laughed. "True enough, never claimed to be much of a cook." After breakfast, Declan hitched up his wagon, intending to take Willow and her son to town as promised. But as he examined her broken wheel more closely, a different plan formed. "This ain't as bad as I first thought," he told her, pointing to the split. "Got the tools to fix it here, save you the expense of the blacksmith. Might take a day or two, though." Willow hesitated. "I wouldn't want to impose further, ain't no imposition," Declan said, echoing his words from the day before. "Got plenty of food," and he glanced at Lily, who was showing James the chicken coop. "Seems the little ones are getting along." So it was decided. Willow and James would stay while Declan repaired their wagon wheel. That afternoon, while he worked in the barn, Willow took stock of his pantry and announced she'd make a proper dinner. "Been living on stew and biscuits too long," she declared. "A man raising a child needs better fare." Declan didn't argue. By sundown, the aroma of roast chicken and fresh bread filled the house, drawing him in from his workshop. He paused in the doorway, struck by the sight of Willow efficiently moving about his kitchen. Lily helping set the table while James solemnly carried spoons one by one from drawer to table. It looked right, natural, and that realization unsettled him deeply. The meal was the best he'd eaten in years. Afterward, while Declan smoked his pipe on the porch, Willow put both children to bed. He tried not to listen, but couldn't help overhearing Lily's excited chatter and Willow's gentle responses as she helped the girl prepare for sleep. When Willow joined him on the porch, the night had fully descended, stars scattered like diamond dust across the black canvas of sky. "Beautiful night," she commented, wrapping her shawl tighter against the autumn chill. Declan nodded, suddenly aware of how long it had been since he'd shared this porch with anyone but Lily. "It is. Your ranch is lovely," Willow continued. "You've built something special here." "Me and Sarah both," Declan corrected. "She's the one picked this spot, said she could see all the way to forever from that rise." He nodded toward the hill behind the house. Willow smiled. "She sounds like a wise woman." She was. They fell silent, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Eventually, Willow spoke again, her voice softer. "My Thomas wasn't perfect. He had grand ideas but little practical knowledge. I worried about his schemes, but I never doubted his heart." She stared into the darkness. "We had 5 good years. I try to remember that when the grief gets heavy." Declan tapped his pipe against the porch rail. "Does it get lighter, the grief?" Willow considered this. "Not lighter exactly, but you get stronger at carrying it." She looked at him directly. "How long were you and Sarah married?" 9 years, Declan replied. "Knew her since we were children, though. Can't remember a time I didn't love her." Willow nodded, understanding in her eyes. "First loves mark us deeply." "Only love," Declan corrected, then felt foolish for saying it. Willow didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was gentle. "I should turn in. Morning comes early." "That it does." After she left, Declan remained on the porch, smoking and thinking about things he'd tried to avoid considering for 3 long years. The next day passed in a blur of activity. Declan worked on the wagon wheel while Willow, apparently unable to sit idle, tackled the accumulated domestic tasks around the ranch. She mended clothes that had been awaiting attention, organized the pantry, and even found time to bake bread and start a stew that filled the house with savory aromas. Lily followed her like a shadow, eager to help and clearly thriving under the feminine attention. James, too, seemed to be coming out of his shell, trailing after Declan and watching solemnly as he worked. "Your boy's going to be tall," Declan commented over lunch when Willow brought food to the barn. "Got that look about him." Willow smiled proudly. "His father was tall." "I hope James gets his kind heart, too." Declan watched as she cut James's food into manageable pieces. "You're doing right by him. Boy needs his mother's steadiness. And a girl needs her father's strength," Willow replied, glancing toward where Lily was arranging sticks into a tiny fence. "You're raising her well, Declan." The compliment warmed him unexpectedly. "Doing my best." By evening, the wheel was nearly repaired. One more day's work would see it finished. Declan found himself working slower than necessary, a realization that both confused and unsettled him. That night, after the children were asleep, Declan found Willow sitting at the kitchen table, sewing by lamplight. She looked up when he entered, her needle pausing mid-stitch. "Hope I'm not disturbing you," he said, oddly hesitant in his own home. "Not at all, just mending James's shirt." She held up the small garment with its newly attached button. "Boys are hard on their clothes." Declan nodded, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Lily's things pile up faster than I can get to town to buy replacements. Never learned to sew proper." Willow set down her sewing. "I could teach you some basics. It's not difficult." "Got hands like bare paws," Declan said, flexing his fingers. "Better suited to breaking things than fixing delicate items." Willow laughed softly. "Yet I saw you working on that wheel today." Those bare paws seem capable of surprising delicacy when required. Declan felt a strange flush creep up his neck. Different kind of work. Perhaps. Willow resumed her sewing. "Before I leave, I'll mend what I can of Lily's things. It's the least I can do for your hospitality." The mention of her departure fell between them like a stone in still water, ripples of unspoken thoughts spreading outward. "No rush on the wheel," Declan heard himself saying. "Winter's coming. Roads to Cedar Creek get treacherous with the first snow." Willow's hands stilled again. "I wouldn't want to overstay our welcome." Ain't no set limit on welcome, Declan replied carefully. Place feels better with you both here. Lily's happier. Their eyes met across the table, and something unspoken passed between them, recognition, perhaps, of mutual loneliness being temporarily eased. James, too, Willow admitted. He's talking more than he has in months. They fell silent, the implication of their words hanging in the air between them. Finally, Declan cleared his throat. Will be ready tomorrow regardless. Your decision after that, Willow nodded, returning to her sewing as Declan took his coffee to the porch, needing the clarity of the night air to sort through his jumbled thoughts. The next morning, Declan woke to the sound of Lily's laughter, a full, joyous sound he realized he hadn't heard in far too long. Curious, he dressed quickly and followed the noise to Lily's bedroom. There he found Willow sitting on the bed behind his daughter, her fingers deftly weaving Lily's blonde hair into an intricate braid. James sat nearby, playing with a wooden horse Declan had carved years ago. Morning, Pa, Lily greeted him cheerfully. Look what Mrs. Harper is doing. Declan leaned against the doorframe, watching as Willow's nimble fingers completed the braid and tied it with a ribbon. There you are, Willow said, patting Lily's shoulders. Pretty as a picture. Lily scrambled off the bed and twirled, showing off her neatly braided hair. Isn't it beautiful, Pa? Mrs. Harper braids my hair like Mama did. The innocent statement hit Declan like a physical blow. He stared at his daughter's shining face, then at Willow, who looked suddenly uncertain. I hope you don't mind, she said quietly. Lily asked, and it's fine, Declan interrupted, his voice rougher than intended. Looks nice, Lily. He retreated to the barn, needing space to process the conflicting emotions those simple words had stirred. She braids my hair like Mama did. It was both painful and somehow right, this woman stepping into a role that had been empty for too long. By midday, the wagon wheel was repaired. Declan tested it, found it sound, and reattached it to Willow's wagon. There was nothing left to delay her departure. Over lunch, the tension was palpable. Even the children seemed to sense it, eating quietly instead of chattering as they had the previous days. The wheel's fixed, Declan finally said, breaking the silence. Should hold fine all the way to Cedar Creek, Willow nodded, not quite meeting his eyes. Thank you, you've been more than kind. When will you leave? Lily asked, her voice small. Willow hesitated. I suppose we should start today to make good time, or, Declan said, surprising himself, you could wait till morning, get a full day's travel with the light. Relief flickered across Willow's face. That would be sensible. The reprieve lightened the mood, and the afternoon passed pleasantly. Declan took all of them to check his trap lines, showing James how to identify animal tracks, while Lily proudly displayed her knowledge of the local plants and trees. That evening, after dinner, Lily asked Willow to read from the family Bible, something Sarah had done nightly before her illness. Willow agreed, her clear voice bringing the familiar stories to life as both children listened, enraptured. Later, when the house had grown quiet, Declan found Willow on the porch, gazing at the stars. Your cousin, he began without preamble. In Cedar Creek, what's waiting there? Willow sighed. A small room in her already crowded home. She has 4 children of her own. Her husband's agreed to let us stay until I can find work or... She trailed off, or remarry. Declan finished for her. Willow nodded, a shadow crossing her face. A widow with a child has limited prospects. Declan leaned against the porch rail, considering his next words carefully. What if you had another option? Willow turned to face him fully, her expression guarded yet hopeful. What sort of option? This ranch is too much for one man to work properly, Declan said, looking out across his land. Lily needs more than I can give her, woman's influence, proper schooling. Declan, I ain't proposing marriage, he clarified quickly. That would be premature, but maybe you could stay on, as a housekeeper if you want to call it that. I can offer room and board plus wages. James would have space to grow, Lily would have company. He paused, and I could use the help. Willow was quiet for so long that Declan began to regret his offer. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. I appreciate the offer, truly, but I need to be clear about something. She met his gaze directly. I won't be any man's servant or charity case. If I stay, it would be as a contributor to this household with respect and clear boundaries. Declan nodded slowly. Wouldn't have it any other way. and if it doesn't work out, if we find we don't suit, then I'll take you to Cedar Creek myself, no hard feelings, Declan promised. But I reckon it might work just fine. A smile slowly spread across Willow's face, genuine and warm. Then I accept your offer, Mr. Drake, for a trial period. They shook hands formally, both acutely aware of the brief contact before quickly pulling away. We should tell the children in the morning, Willow suggested. They'll be pleased, I think. Pleased was an understatement. When informed at breakfast that they would be staying, Lily let out a whoop that startled the chickens in the yard, while James grinned so widely that his usual solemnity vanished completely. Does this mean Mrs. Harper will braid my hair every day? Lily asked excitedly. If you like, Willow agreed, smiling at the girl's enthusiasm. And we can keep the chickens together, James asked, referring to a game he and Lily had invented with her cloth dolls. Yes, and perhaps we'll get some real chicks in the spring, Declan said, surprised at how natural it felt to include Willow and James in future plans. The following weeks established a new rhythm to life on the Drake Ranch. Willow proved herself not just capable but invaluable, bringing order to the household while respecting that it had been Declan's domain. She didn't try to erase Sarah's presence, but instead honored it, keeping the few mementos Declan had preserved while gradually adding her own touches. For his part, Declan found himself working with renewed purpose. The ranch, which had been just surviving under his sole management, began to thrive again. With Willow handling the household, he could focus on expanding their livestock and planning improvements he'd long deferred. As autumn deepened toward winter, they settled into comfortable familiarity. Evenings were spent by the fire, Willow sewing or reading aloud while Declan carved wooden toys for the children. Sometimes they would talk long after Lily and James were asleep, sharing stories of their pasts and cautiously considering the future. They were careful to maintain the boundaries they'd established. Willow had her room, Declan his. Their relationship remained respectful, friendly but reserved, despite the growing warmth between them. The first snowfall came in early November, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. Declan woke to find Willow already in the kitchen, brewing coffee and baking bread to combat the sudden chill. Morning, he greeted her, stamping snow from his boots after checking on the livestock. Cold one today. Beautiful, though, Willow replied, handing him a steaming cup. The children will be excited. True to her prediction, Lily and James were ecstatic when they saw the transformed landscape. After breakfast, Declan helped them build a snowman while Willow watched from the porch, laughing at their antics. Later, as dusk approached, Declan found himself standing beside her, watching the children play. They look like siblings already, Willow observed. Act like it too, Declan agreed. Fighting 1 minute, thick as thieves the next, Willow smiled. It's good for them both. James was too quiet after Thomas died. I worried he'd forget how to be a child. Lily too, Declan admitted. Been too much responsibility on those little shoulders. They fell silent, watching as Lily showed James how to make snow angels. The intimacy of the moment wasn't lost on either of them, this shared witnessing of their children's joy, the easy companionship that had developed between them. Declan, Willow said softly, not looking at him. I need to ask something, he tensed slightly. Ask away. Do you think Sarah would mind, me being here in her home with her daughter? The question caught him off guard, but he considered it seriously. Sarah loved this place, loved Lily more than anything. What she'd want most is for her daughter to be happy, safe. He looked at Willow directly. You make Lily happy, make this place feel like a home again. Willow's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Thank you for saying that. Impulsively, Declan reached out and took her gloved hand in his. Thank you for being here. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then James called out, breaking the spell, and they stepped apart as if by mutual agreement, not ready, not yet. As winter settled in earnest, the ranch became an island in a sea of snow. Trips to town were limited to absolute necessity, and their world contracted to the boundaries of the property. Far from feeling confined, Declan found the isolation oddly comforting. The four of them established traditions. Sunday readings from the Bible, storytelling by the fire, music when Willow played the small harmonica she'd brought with her. December brought Christmas preparations. Declan cut a small pine from their land, and they decorated it with paper chains Lily and James made under Willow's guidance. Declan carved simple gifts: a doll for Lily, a set of farm animals for James, while Willow secretly sewed a new shirt for Declan from fabric she'd purchased on their last trip to town. On Christmas Eve, after the children were nestled in bed dreaming of the morning's surprises, Declan and Willow sat by the fire, a rare moment of stillness in their busy lives. "I have something for you," Declan said, reaching into his pocket. "Ain't much, but—" He handed her a small wooden box he'd carved himself, polished to a soft gleam. Inside was a silver brooch, simple but elegant. "Declan," Willow breathed, lifting it carefully. "It's beautiful. Was my mother's," he explained. "Only thing I have of hers, thought you might like it." Willow looked up at him, emotion clear in her eyes. "This is too precious to give away." "Ain't giving it away," Declan corrected. "Giving it to you, different thing entirely." Willow carefully pinned the brooch to her dress, then reached beneath the sofa cushion and withdrew a package wrapped in brown paper. "Your gift isn't nearly as meaningful." Declan unwrapped it to find the new shirt, better made than anything he'd owned in years. "This is fine work," he said, running his fingers over the even stitching. "Thank you. You needed something besides work clothes," Willow explained, "for Sundays at least." Their eyes met over the gifts, and Declan felt a shift in the air between them, a barrier falling, a new understanding taking shape. "Willow," he began, then hesitated. "Yes," she prompted softly. Before he could continue, a small voice interrupted from the hallway. "Is it Christmas yet, Pa?" Lily stood in her nightgown, hair tousled from sleep. Declan cleared his throat. "Not quite, darlin'. Back to bed now." The moment was lost, but something had changed nevertheless. As they prepared for their own rest, Declan caught Willow's hand as she passed him in the hallway. "Merry Christmas, Willow," she smiled, her eyes reflecting the same warmth he felt spreading through his chest. "Merry Christmas, Declan." Christmas morning brought joyous chaos as the children discovered their gifts. Lily was ecstatic over her new doll, while James lined up his wooden animals in solemn procession across the floor. But the greatest gift, Declan reflected as he watched them play, was the laughter filling his home again. After breakfast, Willow suggested they all attend the Christmas service in town. Though the roads were snow-covered, the day was clear, and Declan agreed it would do them good to see other folks. He hitched the team to the sleigh, and they bundled up against the cold for the journey. The small church was crowded with ranchers and townspeople from miles around, all gathered to celebrate. As they entered, Declan was acutely aware of the curious glances directed their way. Most folks knew him as the widower who rarely came to town except for supplies. Now here he was with a pretty woman and a small boy in tow. The service was simple but moving, the familiar carols filling the wooden structure with hope and joy. Afterward, as they mingled outside, Declan found himself repeatedly introducing Willow as Mrs. Harper, our housekeeper, watching people's faces for signs of judgment or gossip. To his relief, most seemed to accept the arrangement at face value. The town's unofficial matriarch, Mrs. Caldwell, even pulled Willow into her circle, introducing her to the other women while their children played in the snow. "Your housekeeper seems well liked," observed Sheriff Ellis, coming to stand beside Declan. The two men had known each other for years, a relationship built on mutual respect rather than friendship. "She's good with people," Declan replied neutrally. Ellis nodded thoughtfully. "Good with your girl too, from what I can see." Declan followed his gaze to where Lily was proudly showing off her braided hair to the other children, Willow standing nearby with James. "She is that," Declan agreed. "Lonely business, raising a child alone," Ellis continued. "Man needs help." Declan gave him a sharp look. "If you've got something to say it plain," the sheriff shrugged. "Just observing that arrangements that start one way have a tendency to evolve, especially when children are involved." He clapped Declan on the shoulder. "Merry Christmas, Drake." As he walked away, Declan pondered his words. It was true that what had begun as a practical arrangement had become something more complex. The question was, what did Willow want it to become? The answer came unexpectedly on New Year's Eve. The children had been permitted to stay up until 9, celebrating with apple cider and cookies before being tucked into bed. Afterward, Declan and Willow sat in the kitchen, a bottle of whiskey saved for special occasions open between them. "To the new year," Declan proposed, raising his glass. "And to the old one," Willow added. "It brought me here after all." They drank, the whiskey warming Declan's throat. "Been meaning to ask," he said carefully. "Are you happy here, Willow?" Truly, she considered the question, taking another small sip before answering. "Happier than I expected to be again." She met his gaze steadily. "This place has become home, Declan. You and Lily have become." She trailed off, seemingly unable to find the right word. "Family," Declan suggested quietly. Willow nodded, her eyes bright in the lamplight. "Yes. And that frightens me sometimes." "Why?" "Because I didn't come here looking for a new family. I came seeking temporary shelter, then a job." She twisted her glass between her fingers. "I worry about becoming too attached, about James becoming too attached." "And if attachment isn't something to fear?" Declan asked, his heart hammering in his chest. "If it's something to welcome," Willow looked up at him, vulnerability plain on her face. "Is that how you see it?" Declan set down his glass and reached across the table to take her hand. "Willow, I haven't felt this alive since Sarah died. Having you and James here, it's like the world has color again." Tears welled in Willow's eyes. "I feel the same. But Declan, we both carry such grief. How can we be sure this isn't just convenience, loneliness seeking company?" "Been asking myself the same," Declan admitted. "But I think true feeling announces itself whether we're ready or not, and what I feel for you ain't convenience." Willow's fingers tightened around his. "What do you feel then?" Declan took a deep breath. "Admiration, respect. And something growing that might be love, given time and tending." A tear slipped down Willow's cheek. "I've been afraid to name it." "No need to name it tonight," Declan assured her. "Just know it's there, growing steady." Outside, the wind picked up, howling around the eaves of the house. Inside, a fragile new understanding bloomed between them, not a declaration, not yet, but an acknowledgement of possibility. When midnight came, they marked it simply, with another toast and a lingering glance that held promise for the days ahead. January brought the coldest weather in years, keeping them close to home. Declan worked in the barn, repairing equipment for spring planting, while Willow began teaching Lily and James their letters and numbers in earnest. The lessons took place at the kitchen table each morning, with Willow displaying unexpected patience and creativity. "You're a natural teacher," Declan commented one evening after the children were asleep. Willow looked up from her mending, pleased by the compliment. "I taught school briefly before I married, just a small place in Kansas. Never knew that," Declan said, intrigued by this new piece of her history. "There's still much we don't know about each other," Willow pointed out. Declan nodded thoughtfully. "True enough. Suppose that's the way of it when folks come together as adults, missing all those years of knowing. But there's something nice about discovering someone piece by piece," Willow suggested, "like unwrapping a gift slowly." The intimacy of the metaphor wasn't lost on Declan. Since their New Year's conversation, a new awareness had developed between them, subtle touches lingering longer, glances holding deeper meaning. February brought Valentine's Day, not typically observed on the ranch, but marked this year by special heart-shaped biscuits Willow made for breakfast. That evening, after Lily presented both adults with carefully drawn hearts, Declan gave Willow a small gift, a journal bound in soft leather. "Noticed you writing sometimes, on scraps of paper," he explained. "Thought you might like something proper." Willow's face lit up as she ran her fingers over the cover. "It's perfect, thank you." Later that night, they stood on the porch despite the cold, watching the stars in comfortable silence. "The children asked if we were sweethearts today," Willow said suddenly. Declan looked at her sharply. "What did you tell them?" "That grown-up relationships are complicated," she replied. "But that we care for each other very much." "Good answer," Declan said, though part of him wished for something simpler, more definitive. Willow turned to face him, her breath visible in the frosty air. "What would you have said?" The question hung between them, an invitation Declan couldn't ignore. He stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her. "I'd have said yes," he answered, his voice low, "if you'd allow it." Willow's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't step away. I would. Declan reached up slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wished, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Been wanting to do this for some time, he murmured, then bent and kissed her gently at first, then with growing certainty as she responded. When they parted, Willow's cheeks were flushed, and not just from the cold. That was overdue, Declan finished for her, a smile tugging at his lips. Willow laughed softly. Yes, I suppose it was. As winter gradually loosened its grip on the land, their relationship deepened. They were careful to maintain propriety, mindful of the children's watchful eyes, but the connection between them was unmistakable. Even Lily noticed, commenting one morning that her father smiled more than he used to. March brought the first signs of spring, patches of bare earth appearing through melting snow, birds returning from their winter absence. The ranch began to stir from its hibernation, and with it came new plans and possibilities. Been thinking, Declan said one evening as they sat by the fire. The east field would make good grazing land if we cleared it, could increase the herd come summer. Willow looked up from her journal. Declan met her gaze steadily. Was hoping you and James might still be here come summer. Is that a question? Willow asked, closing her journal. Declan set aside the harness he'd been mending and moved to sit beside her on the sofa. Suppose it is. Will you stay, Willow, not as housekeeper but as… He hesitated, then continued. As my wife, if you're willing. Willow's breath caught. Declan, I know it's soon, he hurried on. No, we both carry our pasts with us, but I love you, Willow Harper. Love the way you've brought life back to this house, love how you are with Lily, love your strength and kindness. Tears filled Willow's eyes. I love you too. I wasn't looking for this, wasn't expecting to find love again so soon, but is that a yes? Declan interrupted, hope rising in his chest. Willow laughed through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you, Declan Drake. He pulled her into his arms then, kissing her with all the emotion he'd held in check for months. When they finally separated, both breathless, Willow rested her forehead against his. What will we tell the children? She asked. The truth, Declan replied simply. That we love each other and want to be a family, proper and official. They told Lily and James the next morning over breakfast. The children's reactions were everything they could have hoped for: excitement, questions about the wedding, and most touchingly, James's shy query. Does this mean I can call you Pa now? Declan, throat tight with emotion, had simply nodded and opened his arms to the boy who would soon be his son in every way that mattered. The wedding took place in late April, when the prairie had burst into bloom. It was a small affair at the town church, with only a handful of guests: Sheriff Ellis and his wife, the Caldwells, and a few neighboring ranchers. Lily served as flower girl, scattering wildflower petals down the aisle, while James solemnly carried the rings on a small cushion Willow had sewn. Willow wore a dress of soft blue, with Sarah's silver brooch pinned at her throat, a gesture that brought tears to Declan's eyes when he first saw her. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt, the couple exchanging vows they had written themselves, promises that acknowledged their past losses while embracing their shared future. I take you as you are, Declan vowed, with all your memories and dreams, and offer you my heart, my home, my life. I choose you today, Willow responded, and will choose you every day hereafter to build something beautiful from what life has given us. Afterward, there was a small celebration at the ranch with food and music and laughter filling the yard. As evening approached and the guests departed, the new family stood together on the porch, watching the sun set over their land. Happy, Mrs. Drake? Declan asked, his arm around Willow's waist. Happier than I believed possible again, she replied, leaning against him. Lily tugged at Willow's skirt. Can I call you Mama now, officially? Willow knelt down to the child's level, emotion plain on her face. I would be honored, Lily, but you know your real mama will always be in your heart. Lily nodded solemnly. I know. But I think she'd be glad I have you now too, especially since you braid my hair just like she did. Willow pulled the girl into a tight embrace, meeting Declan's gaze over her head. In his eyes, she saw the same certainty she felt that this family, formed from grief and chance and growing love, was exactly where they all belonged. That night, after the children were asleep, Declan and Willow stood on the hill behind the house, the spot Sarah had loved for its endless view. I feel her approval, Willow said softly. Is that strange? Declan shook his head. Not strange at all. Sarah would want this her daughter loved, her home filled with life again. And Thomas would want James to have a father who can teach him the things he needs to know, Willow added. We carry them with us, don't we? Even as we move forward. Always, Declan agreed, drawing her close. But tonight is about beginnings, not endings. Under the vast Montana sky, they sealed this promise with a kiss not their first, but perhaps the most meaningful. A kiss that acknowledged the past while celebrating the present and all the days to come. As spring ripened into summer, the Drake Ranch flourished under the care of its expanded family. Declan and Willow worked side by side to improve the property, their shared vision bringing new life to land that had merely been maintained for too long. The east field was cleared for additional grazing, the vegetable garden expanded, and the chicken coop rebuilt to house a growing flock. Lily and James, now officially siblings, developed the deep bond that comes from shared adventures and secrets. They explored the ranch together, created elaborate games, and occasionally tested the boundaries of their parents' patience, as all children must. In July, Willow discovered she was expecting a child. The news was met with joy by Declan and excitement from the children, who immediately began debating whether they wanted a brother or sister. Both would be fine, Lily declared magnanimously, as long as I can help take care of them. Me too, James insisted, not to be outdone. I can teach them important things. Willow and Declan exchanged amused glances over the children's heads. Seems we have plenty of helpers already, Declan observed. As Willow's pregnancy progressed, she continued teaching the children, determined that they should have education beyond what the small town school could provide. 3 days a week, they sat at the kitchen table learning reading, writing, arithmetic, and history. The other days were filled with practical lessons, Declan teaching James about ranching, while Lily learned household management and gardening from Willow. In October, with the first frost silvering the grass, Sheriff Ellis rode out to the ranch with news from town. A proper school was being established, with a qualified teacher from back east. Boards asking all families to send their children, he explained over coffee at the kitchen table. Need enough pupils to justify the expense. Declan looked to Willow, knowing the decision was partly hers to make. She considered carefully before responding. We'll send them 2 days a week to start, she proposed. They need the social experience, but I'd like to continue their home education as well. Ellis nodded. Fair compromise. Teacher arrives next month, names Miss Abernathy. Comes highly recommended. After he left, Declan found Willow in the garden, harvesting the last of the season's vegetables before winter set in. You sure about the school? He asked, kneeling beside her despite his bad knee, which still troubled him in cold weather. Willow sat back on her heels, one hand resting on her growing belly. They need to know other children, learn to navigate the wider world. We can't keep them isolated forever. Declan nodded, understanding her wisdom. You're right, just hard to let them go, even for a few days. Willow smiled, reaching out to touch his face. That's what makes you a good father, Declan Drake. Your heart is fully invested in those children. In all of you, he corrected, placing his hand over hers on her stomach, where their child grew stronger each day. Winter came again, but this year the Drake home was fully prepared, pantry stocked with preserves from Willow's industrious canning, woodpile stacked high against the barn, new windows installed to keep out drafts. The isolation of snow-covered months was no longer a burden, but a gift of uninterrupted family time. Christmas was celebrated with even more enthusiasm than the previous year. Declan and James cut a larger tree, which they decorated with ornaments Willow had ordered from a catalog, along with the paper chains that had become tradition. Gifts were more abundant as well. Store-bought dolls for Lily, a wooden train set for James, books for both children, and special presents exchanged between Declan and Willow in private. For after the baby comes, Declan explained, presenting Willow with a rocking chair he'd commissioned from the town's carpenter. It's beautiful, she breathed, running her hands over the smooth wood. Perfect for late-night feedings and lullabies. Her gift to him was a family portrait she'd arranged during their last trip to town, a photograph of the four of them, professionally mounted in a silver frame. Declan stared at it for a long moment, emotion tightening his throat. "First family portrait," he said finally. "Won't be the last." January brought heavy snows and the children's first days at the new school, which operated despite the weather. Declan drove them in the sleigh, returning to report that Miss Abernathy seemed competent if a bit rigid in her methods. "Told Lily and James to mind their manners and remember what you've taught them," he told Willow, who was confined to the house more often now as her pregnancy advanced. At the end of that first school day, the children returned full of stories about their new classmates, the schoolhouse with its rows of desks, and Miss Abernathy's strict rules about speaking out of turn. "But she said I read very well," Lily reported proudly. "Better than some of the older children. And I knew all my numbers," James added. Not to be outdone, Willow exchanged a satisfied smile with Declan. "I'm proud of you both. Now tell me about the other children. Did you make any friends?" As winter gradually yielded to spring, life fell into a new rhythm. School days were balanced with home days, ranch work with family time. Willow's pregnancy progressed well, though the doctor from town advised rest in the final months. "Not much choice but to rest," Willow admitted to Declan one evening as they sat by the fire. "I can barely see my feet, let alone reach them." Declan laughed, then grew serious. "You're not overdoing it, are you, with the children's lessons and all?" Willow shook her head. "Lily's been helping more. She's quite the little mother already." Her expression softened. "She told me yesterday that she's practicing for when the baby comes." "She'll be a good big sister," Declan agreed. "James, too. Boy's grown 3 inches since Christmas, I swear." "They're thriving," Willow said, satisfaction evident in her voice. "Both of them." Declan reached for her hand. "Thanks to you. To us," Willow corrected. "This family is our creation, Declan, all 4 soon to be 5 of us." April brought gentle rains, green grass, and finally, the birth of their child. After a labor that lasted through the night and into the following day, Willow delivered a healthy boy they named William Thomas Drake William for Willow's father, Thomas for her first husband, a gesture that moved Declan deeply. "He's perfect," Declan whispered, holding his son for the first time, marveling at the tiny features and shock of dark hair. "He has your chin," Willow observed, exhausted but radiant in the aftermath of birth. When Lily and James were allowed in to meet their new brother, their awe was palpable. Lily approached the bed cautiously, peering at the swaddled infant in Willow's arms. "He's so small," she breathed. "Was I that small?" "Even smaller," Declan told her. "But you grew strong and beautiful, just as William will." James hung back slightly until Declan beckoned him closer. "Would you like to hold your brother, son?" The boy nodded solemnly, then sat in the chair Declan indicated, arms positioned carefully before the baby was placed in them. The look of wonder on James's face as he cradled his new sibling brought tears to Willow's eyes. "I'll help take care of him," James promised. "Teach him important things when he's bigger." "We know you will," Willow assured him. "You're already a wonderful brother to Lily." The following weeks were a blur of adjustments as the family adapted to the newest Drake. Willow recovered quickly, but the demands of a newborn meant late nights and interrupted sleep. Declan took on more household responsibilities, and Lily proved herself invaluable, helping with chores and entertaining James when the adults were occupied with the baby. By summer, they had established a new normal. William was a good-natured infant who slept well and grew rapidly. The ranch prospered under Declan's management, with a larger herd and more productive fields than ever before. The family's reputation in the community had solidified respected, hard-working folks who contributed to town functions and church activities when weather permitted. On a warm evening in August, as they sat on the porch watching Lily and James chase fireflies while baby William slept in Willow's arms, Declan reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "Never thought I'd have this again," he admitted quietly. "After Sarah died, figured it was just me and Lily till she grew up and left." Willow leaned against his shoulder. "I thought the same, that James and I would make our way somehow, but that happiness, real happiness, was behind us." Life has its own ideas sometimes, Declan observed, watching his older children's silhouettes against the twilight sky. Indeed it does, Willow agreed. Who would have thought a broken wagon wheel would lead to all this? Declan chuckled. Wasn't just the wheel. Was Lily saying you braided her hair like her mama did? That's when I knew. Knew what? Willow asked, looking up at him. That you belonged here, Declan said simply. That you were the missing piece we needed. Willow smiled, touched by the sentiment. And you were ours. The solid ground James and I needed when everything else had been swept away. From the yard came Lily's delighted laughter as she captured a firefly in her cupped hands, James watching in fascination as the insect's light glowed between her fingers. Pa, Mama, look what I caught. She called, running toward the porch with her prize. Declan and Willow exchanged a glance of perfect understanding acknowledgement of the miracle they had created together. This family built from loss and chance and love. Coming, darlin', Declan called back, rising and offering his hand to help Willow up. Together, they stepped off the porch to join their children in the gathering dusk, a family whole and complete under the vast Montana sky. As the years passed, the Drake Ranch grew and prospered. Declan expanded their herds, built a larger barn, and added rooms to the house as their family continued to grow. 2 years after William's birth, Willow delivered twin girls Sarah and Rose, completing their family of 7. Lily blossomed into a capable young woman with her father's steady nature and her stepmother's nurturing heart. By 16, she was teaching the younger children their letters and helping manage the household. James, tall and strong like Declan, became his father's right hand on the ranch, learning every aspect of the business while developing his own ideas for improvements. The town of Cedar Creek grew as well, eventually boasting a proper school building, a doctor's permanent practice, and even a small library that Willow helped establish. The Drake family became fixtures in the community, respected, relied upon, and central to the area's development. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Declan surprised Willow with a small gold locket containing miniature portraits of all 5 children. As he fastened it around her neck, he whispered, "Thank you for making my house a home again." Willow turned in his arms, her eyes bright with happy tears. And thank you, Declan Drake, for taking in a widow when she needed help, and for recognizing that sometimes the greatest act of love is simply making room in your heart for more. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching their children play in the yard, Lily supervising, as James taught William to throw a lasso, while the twins collected wildflowers, Declan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From loneliness and grief to the rich fullness of the life they'd built together. Do you ever think about how different things might have been? He asked Willow. If your wagon wheel hadn't broken that day, Willow shook her head, her hand finding his between their rocking chairs. Some things are meant to be, broken wheels and all. This family was always waiting to happen, we just needed the right circumstances to find each other. Declan squeezed her hand, watching as Lily braided flowers into little Rose's hair, just as Willow had once braided Lily's, a circle of care and love extending through the generations. I believe you're right, he said softly. Some things are just meant to be.